Republican Congressman Greg Murphy of North Carolina. Sir, thank you so much for being with us this afternoon. You heard Trump saying, or I should say responding, that Zelensky does not want peace. Do you think that's the case?
No, I think he wants peace, but there's just a different avenue of what's going on. Trump wants this immediately. Europe wants this immediately. Sadly enough, Zelensky, understandably so, is trying to salvage his country. That's not going to happen in toto. And so what we're trying to do, and what I think President Trump is trying to do, is say, look, let's get this done. Stop the needless killing of millions of civilians and other individuals. Let's stop this. Let's get the war done. And the best way to do it is to not say things are far away. Things should be imminent.
If he wants security guarantees, and that's something that takes time, is he just being honest about that?
Yeah, I think he understandably wants security guarantees, but that's not going to happen with NATO. That's not going to happen. NATO is not coming on the ground or going to be a partner with Ukraine. That said, there can be security guarantees. If we have mineral rights, if we have businesses in Ukraine, that is an American presence. And that's what Trump is trying to do. He's trying to thread the needle of trying to get an American presence there, not a military one, possibly probably an economic one that's going to be mutually beneficial for both countries. But that still tells Russia that America is there in Ukraine and that they should back off and stop any further plans of aggression.
You think an American economic presence is a deterrent to Russia that Ukraine can hang its hat on?
Sure, I think that is something. You know, that same thing going on with energy promises, energy cooperation that can be done. You know, Russia, and I'm firm a believer in this, this thing would have never happened had we not had our debacle in Afghanistan. Russia sensed weakness. And weakness is not what the United States is all about, especially with this president. If we are in Ukraine, Russia is going to think second again for trying to invade Ukraine or push things further if we have a presence there.
I do want to ask you, because you're on the Veterans Affairs Committee, and we're hearing so much about veterans right now. The Department of Veterans Affairs, of course, provides medical care and benefits for our nation's those who served in the armed forces. What concerns are you hearing from voters about the firing specifically at the VA?
Well, I think one thing needs to be put in perspective, as with all things. The VA, by their own admission, last administration said they overhired. They came before us and said that they were trying to figure out what to do with these people. Again, the word that we're finding really in the lexicon today is accountability, and we really need to get the nation's finances under control. Everybody is, of course, up in arms because they don't want their issue or their particular agency, dealt with. But this is a national emergency to try to get our finances under control.
But what
the
are
VA
you hearing?
Was mismanaged in the last 4 years.
I understand what you're saying, but we're hearing reports of people who work on the Veterans Crisis Line, and yes, some of them are being reinstated, but then you have a lot of support staff that is crucial to the Veterans Crisis Line that is still affected by the hiring freeze. You have those who are processing disability evaluations, and they are really understaffed. They have been affected by this. Are you hearing from voters who have concerns? What are they telling you?
Sure. I mean, we're hearing voters, a lot are calling our offices, of course. They're calling all Republican offices voicing concerns. But this is where management of the VA, where Doug Collins is going to come in, and I think there's a fantastic pick with Doug Collins, is going to get back to the VA doing what it's supposed to be doing. The VA is not there for itself. It is there for our veterans. And trying to reorganize the VA into doing something that is an efficient, workable organization and agency is what's after. Is there going to be short-term pain? Is there going to be some issues? Absolutely. And this is what happens with restructuring. But we have to get government back to doing what it's supposed to be doing, and that's working for the people.
I guess the question is, will that pain be borne by veterans? Can you guarantee that veterans' benefits and care will not be affected by these cuts?
No, I can't guarantee anything. But the whole purpose, again, of restructuring is to make sure that that agency is efficient. And, look, I care for our veterans. 1 out of 10 constituents of mine are veterans. It's a real issue in eastern North Carolina. But the real issue is also when somebody can't get benefits and they're put off their doctor's appointments for 8 or 10 months when they can't get care. That is where an agency has failed. We're trying to get an agency that actually works for the people that is supposed to be taken care of.
You have Camp Lejeune there. You certainly are aware. 30% of the federal workforce is veterans. And so far, the firings have not accounted for any veteran status, which means you can kind of extrapolate that it means thousands of veterans have been fired across the federal workforce. President Trump was asked about this on Friday, if he is tracking how many vets have been fired, and here's what he said.
We are, and we take good care of our veterans, so we're watching that very carefully, and we hope it's going to be as small a number as possible. But we're taking care of our veterans. We love our veterans. We're going to take good care of them.
What are you hearing from voters about the firings of veterans more broadly across the federal government?
Well, thankfully, this country cherishes its veterans, and for those who literally sign on the dotted line to try to serve this country and keep us free. Look, nobody wants to get rid of anybody that has a job. I understand that completely. I don't know that one special status has a higher up on anybody else. Again, we go back to where we started.
Well, they do have a hiring preference, as you're aware. And the federal government the federal government has tried to attract them into the federal workforce.
Absolutely, and we should do all that we can to bring our federals into a workforce, into the private sector also. But again, we have to go back to the fact that we are in a dire straits as far as our nation's finances, and it's going to be painful in some regards. Absolutely, and I'm sorry for those individuals, but we won't have a country in the next few years if we don't get our finances under control.
What is your advice to a veteran if they believe they have been fired unfairly? I've spoken to many who make very good cases for what their employment is, even when it comes to helping farmers and ranchers in rural states like yours. They are crucial to maintaining that sustainability in farming and all kinds of jobs that aren't just, I think these typical jobs that people caricature in the media.
Yeah, and I understand that. There is an appeals process, and, I think as we've come into an administration... But the Merit Board is understaffed
and now overburdened by all these appeals.
Well, I mean, so is so many of the things that happened during the pandemic. I'm not downplaying that whatsoever. But there is an appeals process. There are also still, and I had a former staff member that was on a probationary period with the DOD and has been let go. But he's applying for another job within the DOD. And so at some point in time, as the pendulum swing, we're going to swing back the other way, and that people will be employed with our government, our veterans will be taken care of, but we're also going to be on a pathway of financial security and stability for this country.
Congressman Greg Murphy, thank you so much for being with us. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Brianna. Have a good day.
All right, you too.